This is a special day for us around World Outreach. We have a guest with us, Charlie Daniels. And I can't imagine there's anybody that, yeah, that's right. More than 60 years in the music business.
Yes, sir.
20 million albums sold.
Yes, sir.
A Grammy for The Devil Went Down to Georgia. And a member of the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Yes, sir.
That's amazing. And now you're an author. I told him we'd know he's doing well if he sold as many books as he sold albums. But never look at the empty seats. It's a memoir. What caused you to want to write a book?
I just started writing, 20 years ago, I guess it was. And I just started writing, making notes about my life, and kind of started heading in the direction of a biography. So I kept writing and writing, and I finally got to where I had enough pages for a book, but I couldn't find a place to end it because my career goes on. And I wasn't invited to be on the Grand Ole Opry until I was 70 years old. I mean, to be a member, you know, and I was in my 70s, and exciting things kept happening. So I couldn't find a place to end it until I was told I was going to be asked to join the Country Music Hall of Fame. I thought, what a great place to end it. So I did. That's where I ended it at. But the reason I wrote it, I wanted to share a lot of things. I wanted to share my life. I wanted to encourage people who were thinking about taking up the same line of work that I was in. I thought I could uncover some pitfalls that we all go through when we're young, and I wanted to share my faith with people too. So there it is.
Well, you did a beautiful job. It's an easy read too.
Thank you.
Writing a book's hard work.
Well, you know, I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. And of course, I went through a lot of phases with it. I started writing about my family, and I got too far off into my second cousin's third wife and all that stuff, and went back and started trying to edit it down to things I thought people would be interested in, and tried to keep it pretty concise and pretty straight ahead.
Well, I thought you did a great job.
Thank you.
Charlie, your music is hard to define. You don't fit a single genre.
When I was young, which admittedly had been a long time ago, but when I was young, radio stations were not formatted for one kind of music. I'm talking back in the 40s, and they played all kinds of music. It started the day off with country music. They played something for the housewives who were at home, and by the time the kids came home, they start playing whatever the popular music of the day was. I remember when it was big bands and Frank Sinatra and those people. Of course, it morphed into rhythm and blues and rock and roll and that sort of thing. And if I had a smattering of all of it, when you're from the Southeast, you're going to be exposed to the blues and the gospel music. So when I got ready to write original music, it just all kind of, I guess, a process of osmosis or whatever, just kind of seeped into my creative juices, and I would find myself headed in one direction and just turning, going a totally different one. I fought it for a while, but then I just quit fighting it, just to let it lead me where it would. So that's kind of what our music is. People say, are you a country band, a blues band, a rock? I said, we're all the above. We are, you know, we do a little bit of all of it.
One of the things in the book that was intriguing to me is all the different people you played with. Mm-hmm. I mean, the diversity in that is crazy. I mean, you were close to Leonard Skinner in that band.
Yeah.
Some fun stories in that.
Yes, definitely.
You surprised me with your comment on the Little River Band.
Yeah.
You said it was as close to perfect.
The only band that we did a tour of Australia with Little River Band, and I missed one show of being sitting out in the audience listening to them. They sounded just exactly like the records they made. They were absolutely perfect harmony. It was just a joy to listen to somebody that did it that well every night. They're an incredible band.
That's pretty high praise when Charlie comes and sits and listens to you play night after night, huh? When I read the book, it's pretty clear to me that there were points where God opened doors for you, blessed you, and
definitely
just supernatural opportunities.
I could have very easily have lost his right arm. I got tangled up in a post hole digger, and I had a work glove. I have no business around machinery to start with. I cut this finger off in high school on a rip saw, but my work glove sticks out like this, and I was standing there talking to somebody, and that little piece of work glove got tangled in, and my arm started going around, tangled up in that auger, breaking bones. I had the bone out through the skin here, and completely in two up here. And I never will forget, it was a friend of mine was sitting it was a diesel tractor we had on the back end of, and I said, he saw what was happening, he cut it off. But you know, a diesel, after you cut it off, it may jump a time or two. And I remember being on my knees, and I said, help me, Lord. And it stopped. And I had no idea what I'd done to my arm. I couldn't see it. I couldn't, it was just numb. It hurt bad too, but I couldn't really tell what was wrong with it. And when I went in the operating room, I told the doctor, just get me in shape to hold a guitar pick and a fiddle bow again, and I'll be fine. He said he wasn't making any promises, and he got in there. When I finished, he said, you're going to be okay. As bad as it damaged my arm, it did no muscle and nerve damage, so I was able to go back to playing again. Had it been this arm, I would be out of business for sure. But things like that have happened to me so many times that God had a hand in it. I knew He had a hand in it. I knew He's had a hand in a lot of things that have not just dangerous things, but good things. I have been so blessed in my life. I've been able to do exactly what I want to do for a living for 60 years. Yeah. And I don't mean to gloss that over and make it sound like it's been easy, because it has not been. And there's a lot of ups and downs and sacrifices and that sort of thing. But as far as being able to pursue what I wanted to pursue, I've been able to do it all of my life, all of my adult life, and still doing it. I'm 81 years old and I'm still rocking and rolling,
How many shows you play this year?
We did, I think, 102 of the regular shows, and then we did 11 Grand Ole Opry appearances.
I'm glad you're slowing down.
I am. That is slowing down, really. That's comfortable. Hazel travels with me. We travel on the bus, and 100. We used to do. I don't even know how many dates we did a year. There's no telling. Somewhere probably 250 or something like that. I couldn't do that anymore. But around 100 is comfortable to me.
That's amazing. I know Bob Dylan in Nashville was kind of a turning point for you.
Very much some doors.
Can you tell a little bit about that story?
I'll be glad to. Bob Dylan came to Nashville in 1969 to do an album that would be called Nashville Skyline. A lot of people think that was the first album he'd done here, but it was not. It was the third one he did. He did Blonde on Blonde, John Wesley Harding, and the third one was going to be Nashville Skyline. So he had a comfort level here with the musicians he worked with. He used the same musicians, and they had booked 15 recording sessions to do Nashville Skyline, and had all the players except the one guitar player they wanted to play, who had played with him before, was booked on the very first session and couldn't make it. And Bob Johnston asked me to come in and fill in for him. And I don't think I've ever paid any more attention to every note that somebody sang and played as I did to what Bob Dylan did that day. And we did that session, and I was packing my gear up to leave, and Bob Dylan asked Bob Johnston, the producer, said, where is he going? He said, he's leaving. I got another guitar player coming in. Bob Dylan said 9 words that would change my life. He said, I don't want another guitar player, I want him. And it was such a great thing, because Bob Dylan was the kind of artist, people actually read the liner notes. We had those big 12-inch discs back then, and people actually read the liner notes. They wanted to know about him and about everything about him, and he was kind enough to put the musicians' names on the back of the album. And having your name on the back of a Bob Dylan album back in 1969, 1970, along in there, was a really big deal. It still is, as far as I'm concerned, but it was a really big deal then, because it gave you a legitimacy that was hard to come by. It was one of those things that people say, he must play pretty good. He worked with Dylan. I went on to do 3 albums with Dylan. I did Nashville Skyline, Self-Portrait, and New Morning. It was a really big thing for me insofar as recognition, that sort of thing.
Well, I read that differently. I thought you added some momentum to his career.
Oh.
He got to play with you.
I don't think he needed the momentum. I was the one needing the momentum.
Oh. Well, I know another big part of your life has been your advocacy for our country.
Yes, definitely.
You talked in the book about kind of the pendulum swing of World War II and how patriotism was at an all-time high. And then we saw it ebb to an all-time low in Vietnam.
Right. Yeah.
You've walked through all of that, but you've spent a lot of time and energy entertaining troops.
Yes.
Can you tell a bit about that? Where have you been?
Oh, I've been to Greenland and Cuba and Kuwait and Afghanistan and Iraq and Kyrgyzstan and some other stand, I can't remember. And of course, we've done some of the European things where that was the kind of the danger zones I was speaking about. But we did some things in Western Europe and England and Germany and France and places like that with the troops. I want to tell you something, Alan, and I say this on stage every night. The people who make up our military, they're the best Americans we have. They are. I have said so many times when I go among these young people, and they're maybe inside of a wire that's a few acres of land over in Iraq or somewhere, And I mean, they're not depressed. They're taking care of business. They're responsible for their own actions. If the youth of America had the same kind of makeup as these guys and gals do, that they were responsible, getting themselves up in the morning, whatever, and going and doing what needed to be done and not complaining about it. They're such a great bunch of kids, and it's just such an honor to be among them. And they come say, thank you for coming over here to Iraq. I said, don't thank me. I'm going home in a few days. I thank you. I want to thank you. That's what we're doing over here. We come to thank you for what you're doing. But they're the best, and it makes you feel good to know that you got a group of young people out there that are standing between you and there's a lot of people out there that really want to do away with us.
Absolutely.
And I wish that would dawn on everybody. In fact, it's going to dawn on everybody before it's over with. It has to, because we got some very, very, very bad enemies, some very mean, very evil enemies. If they can't fight us, they're fighting each other. We got to take these people seriously. We have to take them very, very serious. And I'm afraid some of our politicians don't do that. I'm afraid some of our politicians are very, very lackadaisical about, am I supposed to be talking politics in church? Is that right? I think you're a little
You're
too,
all right.
a little too lackadaisical about taking the seriousness of these people, of how badly they want to do away with us. And that's their whole thing. That's what they're dedicated to. We're going to be faced with this for generations.
We'd like to invite you to join us for one of our weekend worship services here at World Outreach Church. You'll find lots of friendly people, engaging worship, and transformational encounters in exploring the Word of God together. There's something here for the whole family. You can choose from 4 service times: Saturdays at 5 and 7 p.m., Sundays at 8:30 and 10:30 a.m. Located right off of I-24, we're easy to find. You can visit our website to find our location. So join us. We'd love to see you here at World Outreach.
You do a lot of work, too, with the veterans.
Yes.
And the wounded warriors and helping with that.
I feel obligation to our veterans. People. My organization I deal with is called the Journey Home Project, and our mission is to help our servicemen and women who come back from their service, most of them, in fact, from combat zones, to reintegrate into civilian life. Now, that sounds to us who are uninitiated and don't understand, it seems like a very simple thing to do. It seems like moving from one place to the other. But you take a kid that's been in a war zone for a year, and they're dodging bullets and IEDs, and all of a sudden you get on a jet plane, and 2 days later you're walking around again in society, and nobody understands, what you've been through. And there's sometimes a very unique set of problems trying to integrate back into civilian life, trying to hit the pace, trying to hit the mark. Now, some people have no problem, but some people have terrible problems. Some people need medical help. Some people we help buy furniture and automobiles and education and that sort of thing. And it's just right here in Murfreesboro, MTSU, there is a center there for our veterans. They have a student veterans center that they can obtain mental health care. They have job placement. They have teleconferencing. They have all these things. The main thing that they have is a place that our veterans can separate themselves from the rest of society and go in and sit down and talk to people who have been through the same thing they have. A kinship, a kind of a brotherhood, sisterhood sort of a thing. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help our people readjust to civilian life.
That is powerful. Amen. We benefit from that in our community, but Charlie's an advocate for this all over the country and every place you go. And I think that's such a powerful voice.
Thank you.
You have gotten pretty good at using social media.
Well, it's amazing what you can say in 280 characters.
And I'm proud of you. You're learning to have an opinion.
Well, I'm trying, stuff I put out, some people like it, some people don't. I found most of the people that don't have a very magnificent vocabulary of 4-letter words. So you can separate,
You talked in your book a little bit about how you learned to process the critics. One of my favorite quotes from the book is that there was a critic said that the CDB was once named one of the 5 worst rock and roll bands.
Yeah, right.
Most worthless rock and roll bands.
It was us and the Grateful Dead and Rush, and I forget, there's a whole bunch of bands like that. I often wonder where that guy was. I've tried to look him up, I can't find him. I
think another thing, and maybe you could speak to this for the younger people or the musicians, No doubt you have a gift and a talent, but you have worked really hard, and that comes through in the book, the diligence and the determination and the unyielding focus and effort in your life.
Well, I had one time, one of the biggest promoters in this country made the statement that we'd never make it. I'll tell you who was it, Bill Graham. Remember Bill Graham? And I got to be good friends with Bill Graham before it was over with, but it's like a kick in the head, for a promoter that I had so much admiration for would say that about us. But what it did, rather than just make me not back up from what I was doing, it made me want to go on. It made me want to do it better and do it harder and grow a little tougher skin. And one of the greatest thrills I had was one night in San Francisco. I remember Bill Graham introducing us as a great Charlie Daniels band. So I had my comeuppance there. But if you take somebody else's opinion for what you're doing, there's always going to be people that don't want you to make it. In fact, it's more people, usually in the music business and the criticism business, that don't want you to make it than do want you to make it. Because success is pyramid shaped. There's a lot of room up here. But a lot of room down here, but up here, the further up you go, the fewer places they are. And everybody wants to be there, and you're competition. So if you ask somebody, how you like that song? I think that's terrible. He may love it and wish he could record it himself, but.
Well, because I grew up in Middle Tennessee, the Volunteer Jam was a big part of our life around here.
Volunteer Jam started as a live recording session in 1974. I was doing an album called Fire on the Mountain. We wanted to do 2 live cuts. We wanted to do Orange Blossom Special, a song I wrote called No Place to Go. And the only place we could draw a crowd, nobody really knew us very much, was in Nashville. We had a small following around Nashville, so we booked War Memorial Auditorium. Somebody came up with the term Volunteer Jam because of the volunteer state of Tennessee. And I casually invited some of my friends to come up. I said, why don't y'all come up and jam with us Saturday night when we get through, doing the recording. And Dickie Betts from the Allman Brothers Band and 3 of the Marshall Tucker guys from the Marshall Tucker Band came. Both of those bands were red hot in Nashville at the time. I didn't tell anybody that was there. I just brought them out on stage. And it was everybody just had such a wonderful time. We figured we got to do this again. So the next one was here in Murfreesboro at Murphy Center. So we went from a 2,200 seat hall to a 13,000 seat hall in 1 year's time. That's how quick Volunteer Jam grew. We did our 42nd anniversary one last year in conjunction with my 80th birthday. And we're going to do another one this year if nothing happens in March. We're looking to do another one. So we'll see what happens.
First time we met. Yeah, you can give him a hand on that. First time we met, you came at an Easter service.
I did, yeah.
At Murphy Center. Made me smile, the symmetry of that, from Volunteer Jam to Easter.
I'll never forget what you said. You said, I bet this is the first time Alan Jackson ever opened for you, isn't it?
That's true. I remember the first time at a church service, I asked Charlie to play The Devil Went Down to Georgia.
He did, yeah, he did.
He said, Pastor, I can't do that at church. And I said, yes, you can. So we made it.
So when I do it, it's his fault, not mine.
Charlie, one of the things I have observed in you is that you have a genuine appreciation for people. When we're out in public, they're never an intrusion. If somebody speaks to you, you treat them with dignity and respect.
Well, that's the way I want to be treated. And people have let me live my dream. If somebody wants an autograph or a handshake or a hug or whatever, unless I just simply can't stop, for some reason, like running to catch a plane or something, I can't stop. If I got time to stop, I'm going to stop and talk to them, or stop and sign an autograph for them, stop and do whatever, because I've lived my dream because of people that enjoy what I do, and I never ever. That's never out of my mind. It's always on my mind. If somebody wants to say, hey, Charlie, I got something to tell you, and I got time, I'm going to stop and listen to them. And it's been, I cannot tell you what an incredible ride. Well, there it is. That's my version of it anyway. It's first 80 years of my life. But I can't tell you what an incredible ride this has been. It's just been, and it's all because of people that have bought my records and my concert tickets and things. I am beholden to these people. I very much feel that way.
Well, it's not typical. I interact with a lot of people, and so often when people have a bit of success, it feels like people become an intrusion. And I have learned from you and Hazel because I've been with you. We were in Israel together, having breakfast one morning, and there was a table near us. The people, somebody seemed to recognize Charlie. And I watched him trying to explain. They weren't American. They were trying to explain who he was, and they were imitating the fiddle. And we pointed it out to Charlie, and he went and got the coffee pot and went over to pour him a cup of coffee. And I thought the poor man was going to stroke out. Or we were up in the northern part of Israel, in Galilee, on a bus, and somebody through the front of the bus window saw Charlie. And when he doesn't have his hat on, he's incognito. And they recognized him. And Charlie climbed off the bus, and Hazel gave you a Sharpie, and you went out and signed whatever they had. I've never heard him complain about people or their interest in who he is. And Hazel is such a beautiful support in that. You've clearly done it together.
Oh, yeah. Well, 53 years we've been together.
This may work out.
I think it's going to. She's my life. My life.
Because when you met Hazel, you were such an overwhelming success in the music business already.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even have a car. That's what her brother told us. This guy ain't even got a car. What are you doing? She did have one, though, so she used to drive me around.
Well, that works. Oh, that is so fun. Charlie, we were in Israel one time and for the Feast of Tabernacles. And they asked Charlie to come do a song. The convention center in Jerusalem was filled, but the night they asked him to come was Israeli night. And it was the hall was filled with the Israelis. And they're a little suspect of the Christians coming to town and Christians doing their performance. And so Charlie was going to come out, and I'm standing backstage with him, and he's getting ready to walk out. And he says, "I got a surprise for you, Pastor." Now that will give you a moment to pause if you know Charlie. And he walked out on that stage in that hall filled with Israelis with his fiddle and began to play their national anthem.
Hatikva.
And they began to stand around the room. And then they began to weep. And when he got done with that, he turned around and looked at the band and nodded at him, and they went into "I'll Fly Away." It was perfect.
You know, it's such a special place. I told before, I've been over there with you 3 times now. And somebody told me before, some of your church folks that have been with you before, that if you go to Israel, it'll change your life. And I got to tell you, it has changed my life. If I could only take one more trip to a foreign country, all the rest of my life, it would be back to Israel. I want to go back again. I feel a kinship. I don't know any other way to explain it. And it's a feeling that you get. I have developed a love for Israel and for the Jewish people that is hard to explain. I didn't understand until I knew we were supposed to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I knew we were supposed to love the Jewish people, and I did, but not like I did after I went and saw the Holy Land. And it truly is the Holy Land, and to walk where our Lord walked, and to see the Old Testament and the New Testament all come together in a space of a few feet is amazing.
Changes our faith.
It changes it enforces your faith. It's like, I understand more about going from the Old Covenant to the New Covenant. And of course, they still practice the Old Covenant to a big extent over there. But it's just such it becomes almost seamless, to how the space of one night. One day, one night, or 3 days, I guess I should say, from the time that Jesus was crucified to the time he rose, that this all took place. And what has always fascinated me about this, the first person that was saved under the new covenant was a thief hanging on a cross that had spent his whole life probably doing no telling what. And the very last, when his life was ebbing away, he asked Jesus to save him. And he did.
Amen. Amen. I've heard you in a lot of different settings encourage audiences to love the Lord, stand up for their faith, love our country.
Definitely.
If you could give that message to a group of people today, what would you say to them?
Just what you got through saying, It says, the Bible says, let the blessed of the Lord say so. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so. If don't deny being a Christian. It also says that if we acknowledge Jesus before men, he'll acknowledge us before the angels. But if we don't, then we don't get acknowledged. So never, ever be ashamed of being a Christian. You know, and never be ashamed of your country.
Amen.
No matter. I haven't been everywhere in the world, but I've been enough places to know that regardless of all our wrinkles and warts and the problems that we've got, that this is by far head and shoulders above any other place on earth. Any place. We have more rights. We have more opportunities. We have more everything available to us in this country. And I know we got problems here. There's no two ways about it. But our good side so much outweighs our bad side. It's still possible for people to make something out of themselves in this country. If you want it bad enough, then you go for it.
The book is called Never Look at the Empty Seats. It's a memoir by Charlie Daniels. It's a great read. It's an easy read. But it will give you an insight into Charlie and Hazel and what God has done in their lives that I think will give you courage and hope to know that God will use your life. It's not easy. It's not accidental. But God is faithful.
He is faithful.
Charlie, thank you for what you do for our faith and for our nation and for our troops. You are a blessing in my life and in this congregation of the body of Christ. Thank you. Bless you.
Join us every week for another exciting message from Pastor Alan Jackson. And until then, visit us online at intendministries.org and discover remarkable information and resources to help take your Christian life to the next level. And when you visit online, consider joining our effort to continue sending this powerful and challenging message around the globe. We want to share this program worldwide, but we can only do it with your help. So consider partnering with us today. And if you're visiting the Nashville area, we'd love to see you at World Outreach Church in Murfreesboro. We're easy to find, so look us up when you're traveling through. And don't forget to connect with Pastor Jackson every day through social media. Thanks so much for joining us and being a part of this ministry. We'll see you again next time for another encounter with Pastor Alan Jackson.